Welcome back, Michael Corens Show. Again, halfway through the show, I had promoted this show for some time. We couldn't actually announce what it was for reasons of security, and that in itself, I suppose, explains a great deal. I think in times past, if we had wondered, is it okay if I say a certain thing or publish a certain cartoon or write a certain article, it just wouldn't have happened. But different mindset today. On one issue in particular, the issue of Islam, and again we have many Muslims on the show, and we speak about all sorts of issues. And there are many Muslim people, particularly in North America, in Canada especially, I believe, who do want a discourse around all sorts of issues. But to publish a cartoon of Muhammad, the turban being a bomb, I mean, really, this is not particularly harsh. One of several other cartoons leading to international demonstrations, between 100 and 200 people killed, buildings firebombed, death threats, arson attacks, the cartoonist living under police security, other people. Remember Salman Rushdie's book. Salman Rushdie is still around, and he's doing the gala circuit and so on. There are people who translated his book who had their throats cut, remember. They didn't have the influence of Salman Rushdie, who spent years attacking Margaret Thatcher and then had to run to her to be protected by Margaret Thatcher. Kurt Westergaard, cartoonist. Lars Hedegaard, president of the International Free Press Society. We were speaking before the break about the intellectual class. They would love to be described as such. I don't know if they really are, but the liberal establishment, creative people who didn't support you in the way one would have expected.
Yes, they didn't support me. But I think it's worse, and I would like to add something to what Lars said.
Please.
That the intellectual creative class, there are many members of this class which, after my opinion, has victimized the Muslim minority. So they have, in fact, contributed to a development of a paranoia in this class. One of the most scaring things I have experienced was once when I, with the Danish TV2 channel, had invited a prominent member of the Muslim society in Denmark to my home to discuss the situation. It was Ramadan, so there were food on the table which we could not touch until sunset. Mm-hmm. And we had at first a very good discussion about the Middle East situation. I had said, I will not give any excuse, forget it. But then when we started eating and then accelerated the discussion in a very bad way, suddenly he demanded an excuse again. And I said,
apology.
Yes, apology, yes. And I said, you won't get it. Forget it, simply. And then he said, okay, I know how things are in fact. In fact, Jyllandsposten, your newspaper, is owned by Jewish American dark forces. And they decide everything about this newspaper. And if you don't go after the Muslims, your newspaper will simply be closed because of the influence of these dark forces, Jewish American dark forces. I was really scared. I was sitting, talking with a man with a very good education. He was engineer and he has been in Denmark since his early childhood. I was scared.
Who does? Not that it really matters, but who does own the newspaper?
The newspaper is owned by what do we call foundation?
Yes. Self-earning.
A Danish foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
There aren't that many Jews in Denmark.
No,
And they don't own the newspaper.
They do not. No.
Europe has been, particularly Northern Europe, has been very sympathetic to Palestinians. Yeah. And many would argue they're not very sympathetic to Israel, particularly in Sweden next door, but also in Denmark. So this allegedly intelligent, educated man was convinced that the only reason you drew a cartoon is because American Jews who own the newspaper had said, unless you do, we'll close the paper down.
Yeah.
How do we have dialogue with such people?
That's very difficult. afterwards, I wrote letters to him. I think I wrote 2 or 3 letters proposing that we could meet with outside the searchlight of the medias and then talk man to man about this situation. But I never got any answer. I have always tried the dialogue, but also with other prominent Muslims, but I never get an answer.
Do you know what? Talking about this liberal establishment is very interesting. What they do react to and what they do not react to. We have had prominent imams in Denmark saying, for example, the Jews are spreading AIDS in Egypt. He was quoted in the newspaper. He was the lead imam of the country. He's dead now.
Egypt threw out almost all of its Jews.
Yes,
violently some time ago.
Right. And nobody reacted. He was still considered to be sort of a moderate man whom you could talk to. Another imam said that that was in, I think, in 2000, in 99 it was. He was participating in a debate and said, he said, of course, when we are a sufficient number of Muslims in this country, the Sharia law will be introduced, be the law of the land. And he was asked, does that mean that you will stone women? He said, yes, unfortunately, it's in the hadith, so we'll have to do that. Apostates will have to be killed. He's still, to this day, considered to be a man you can talk to. He's quoted by the press.
He said this explicitly. One man said, Egypt expelled almost every Jew in the 50s and 60s, people who'd been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. AIDS is not spread by anyone in particular. Another man says, my interpretation of Sharia law would include the stoning of women and killing apostates. Yeah. And both are considered by the same establishment that was reluctant to defend the cartoon as reasonable people.
Yes, I'd say that. That's a fair description. So that's what we are up against.
Is there any hope?
Of course there is hope. There's always hope. I have confidence in the common man. I don't have any confidence in the class to which I belong. I'm afraid. Writers, journalists, there are some, of course. Let's not be unfair. Yeah. But the vast majority would rather look the other way, shut up out of fear, or because it's not convenient. They will not be invited to the right cocktail parties. Their career perhaps will take a dive. But the common man. And Danes are well educated, by the way. Yes. I think they know where it's at. And these are the ones that are upholding our liberties and our free speech.
You still draw cartoons. You still work. Have you addressed the Islamic issue since this cartoon?
Yes, I have.
Any problems after those cartoons?
Well, very modest reactions, some letters and mails and so on.
The newspaper didn't in any way impose censorship on you?
No. But, and let me tell a very special episode. The other day, when I came out from my fitness center, where there's a lot of young, strong men from the Middle East, you know, these guys with a chain around the neck. Then 2 of them came up and they asked me, are you Kurt Westergaard? I said yes. And I must admit that my fantasy started working, working out the worst thinkable scenario. And then one of them said, we would like to be photographed with you. Is that possible? Well, and then we did this little show. We were standing shoulder to shoulder, and then they very politely said, "Thank you very much. Goodbye."